So a car accident case could be worth $20,000 or $2 million. And the difference isn't luck. It comes down to several different factors that we're going to talk about today. So if you're watching this video, you may have been in a car accident, you may have been offered a settlement, you may be wondering how that settlement was calculated or whether that offer is fair. So we're going to hopefully explain how you might go about answering that question today in this video. We're going to talk about 5 factors that go into evaluating a car accident claim, or really almost any personal injury claim of any kind, but specifically in the car wreck context. So number 1 is the severity of the injury. How bad is the injury? Is it permanent? Is it life-altering? Is it going to affect your ability to work and earn money? Is it going to require future medical care and cost? These are all very important questions that go into valuing your claim. As an example, brain injury cases where someone is completely different after an accident. Their baseline mental capacity and daily function is forever affected. They may not be able to work in the same way or at all. These are the kinds of cases that terrify insurance companies because they are so expensive and so valuable, and therefore the exposure to the insurance companies is at its highest. Similarly, cases involving paralysis are extremely scary to insurance companies because they know that juries will reward a lot of money for the pain and suffering of that. Also, paralysis likely involves some loss of earning capacity depending on your job. For example, if you have to be able to be mobile and work on your feet, but paralysis injuries are significant and they command much higher settlement values. A third example might be loss of a limb and the need for prosthetic devices. I didn't really know this until I handled a case like this, but these prosthetic devices, not only are they very expensive, but they don't really last that long. They will have to be replaced and they will therefore incur future medical costs. It's really significant. So kind of moving down in order of severity, anytime you have fractures or require surgery, these medical expenses tend to fetch higher settlements, especially from the insurance company's software programs that sort of automatically judge the value of your claim. And I've got a video kind of explaining how that process works with their software program. But fractures, surgery, the more care someone gets, the more expensive it is, the higher the settlement value. And then finally, any kind of disability that's caused by the accident, any kind of permanent injury that's going to reduce your effectiveness at your job and therefore reduce your future earning capacity. These sorts of injuries, again, command higher settlement values and verdicts at trial if your case goes there. The second big factor that affects whether a case will settle for an average amount or an above average amount is actually just how much money does the defendant have? How much insurance coverage is there? This is one of the functional limits in all of personal injury law that, you may have a terrible outcome. You may have a multi-vehicle pileup and several fatalities, but if there's only $25,000 or $50,000 to go around, that's all that there's going to be. This is why commercial trucking cases are both so expensive and can result in higher verdicts and settlements, because by law, commercial trucking operations must carry $750,000 of insurance coverage. So this means there's likely going to be more coverage in those situations. It's also why you need a lawyer, because it may be that driver 1 has the bare minimum limits of $25,000, but if there's some other entity you can bring in, for example, we had a motorcycle case where a motorcyclist was injured, but it was in a construction zone. So not only did we go after the at-fault driver who caused that accident, we kind of expanded the scope of the case to be about this negligent construction zone, and we're able to bring in another heavy-hitting commercial liability policy by doing that. So that's a way that lawyers can add value by finding and maximizing all the available insurance coverage in your case. And along these lines, one of the biggest things that you can do to protect yourself from a future incident is to make sure you have underinsured or uninsured motorist coverage. I've got a video on that. That is basically protecting you in the event you're in a bad accident with someone who does not have insurance at all or only has the bare minimum and cannot cover your medical bills and all of your expenses. So you can ensure that your own settlement will be within the realm of reason by making sure that you have the coverage in place. Factor 3 is future medical care and lost wages. And we've already sort of touched on this, but future medical care is one of the key things that insurance companies will look at and juries will look at if your case goes to trial in terms of valuing your case. Are you going to need a future surgery? Are you going to need future medical devices? Are you going to need future nursing care? Are you going to need future wound care? All these things that add up. Are you going to need future, rehabilitation and hospitalization? If you can establish all those things with expert proof, you will add value to your case. The fourth factor is the quality of your representation. And I don't say lawyer there because I know something like 40% of people try to go through this process on their own by themselves and don't even hire a lawyer. So in a lot of ways, lawyers' biggest competition is not the other billboard lawyer or the other lawyer on TV. It's just people trying to do it themselves. And that's fine. I'm all about empowerment. But if you don't know how insurance companies play their game, and if you don't know all the potential parties that you could have sued, you may be leaving money on the table. And further, even when you hire a lawyer, different lawyers get different results. For example, how hard they work the case, how deep their investigation goes, the quality of their experts, whether they know to hire experts, the quality of their investigation in terms of whether other parties could be liable, and developing those sorts of theories. This is what separates really good lawyers from just your average lawyer. So it's kind of a sliding tier, right? There's people trying to do it themselves, which is risky because A, you don't necessarily know how to get the most money. And even if you get the full policy limits, you won't really know whether there was some other pocket that you could have gone after. And then there's hiring the average lawyer who's maybe just going through the motions. They have 100 cases. They work at a high volume TV law firm. Your case is just another one of many on their desk. They don't give you the kind of particularized attention that you deserve. And as a result, certain avenues and certain elements of your case were overlooked or missed, and that is never brought to the attention of the insurance company, and as a result, you don't get the best offer. Finally, there's the law firm that absolutely works your case as hard as they can, gives you personalized attention, understands the ins and outs, and gets you the maximum recovery. So that is the fourth factor, the quality of representation along that sliding scale in terms of whether you're going to get the most for your case. So what are some red flags that let you know that your case might be on the higher end of this spectrum and that you should really get a lawyer? Number one would be if you are still getting medical treatment and still going to appointments months after the accident. It's one thing if you just the day of go to the ER, get checked out, then you're okay. It's another if you then have to go to physical therapy, but then it's quite another if you're still having pain and now you're going to physical therapy and that's not working, and maybe you're now going to have to go back to an orthopedic specialist, say, and the orthopedic specialist is telling you might need surgery. Like, this is where you're starting to get in the realm of, hey, stop trying to do this yourself, call a lawyer. Another one would be if you keep having pain and the doctors are telling you, hey, this just might be your new baseline. This just might be permanent. Maybe you've got a nerve injury now that you can do certain muscle exercises or therapies or, massage treatments or whatever, but the nerve impingement is permanent and you're just going to have to deal with these shooting, excruciating pains every day for the rest of your life. If that sounds like you might be on the higher end of these settlements. If the injury affects your ability to work, if you can't concentrate, for example, if you've got a head injury and now you can't do complex thinking processes without headaches or light sensitivity. Maybe you're someone who works on your feet and you're experiencing pain. You cannot get through the shift the same way. You have to decline certain shifts or overtime opportunities because of the pain. That sounds like you. Again, that might be on the higher end of the settlement range. Number four, and this is a big one, is just if the accident involved a commercial vehicle or a big business or governmental entity. And the reason I say that is because those defendants will have more coverage for something like this than the average person. I've got a video that 20% of the drivers in Kentucky and Tennessee have no insurance at all. So if you're involved in an accident with a corporate entity or governmental defendant or a big business, these tend to have higher insurance coverage, which means if you know how to maximize your arguments, you should be able to get more money. And that's another way that a lawyer can really deliver value if they know how to advocate for your case. One of the ways that you can maximize your own settlement value is by seeking medical attention promptly, following up getting every medical treatment that you need, every treatment that's recommended. If you go to the ER, for example, and they refer you to physical therapy, make sure you go to all those appointments and don't leave anything undone. Document everything, categorize all of your expenses, all of your lost wages, all of your out-of-pocket expenses, and lastly, call a lawyer. Make sure that you leave no stone unturned in advocating for yourself. So if you've been injured in an accident and want to learn more information, see if we can help you, click the link in the description for a free conversation with me or one of the attorneys at our office. Thanks so much for watching.